Wow, once again, Vernee has impressed me with another one of their phones. Specs wise, the Vernee Mars Pro is pretty mid-rangey. Helio P25, 6GB of RAM, and a 3500 mAh battery, but these unimpressive mid-range specs really disguise how good the user experience is on the Mars and how much I like it. Once again, Vernee has outdone themselves and created what is, in my opinion, the best Vernee phone yet, and definitely the best mid-range MediaTek phone in the market today. Starting with the build, it's metal, it feels good, it looks fine. I don't quite like how the phone looks from the back, but man does it feel great in the hand and solid as well. Even better than that, the Vernee Mars Pro feels positively tiny even though the dimensions on the phone aren't actually all that impressive. I felt almost no difference using my Zuck Z2 in a case and the Mars in terms of size, and that's a huge accomplishment for Vernee. They claim a 1mm bezel around the screen also, which technically is true, but measured to the outside extent of the phone and it's more like 2mm, which is still better than what those bezel-less phones like the Mace Alpha gave us. We have the power and volume buttons and fingerprint sensor on the right side. The sensor is in the sweet spot, but the buttons are way too high, often requiring two hands to reach. The display here is actually not that impressive. Yes, it's really responsive, but on the other hand, the screen is really sticky compared to other displays, so your finger will catch from time to time. The screen displays slightly darker colors than other LCD screens, but still look fine to the eye. The weakest part of the display is sunlight visibility. Vernee claims 500 nits of max brightness, but it's a lot closer to 450 or even 400, hard to see in bright sunlight. All this being said, the display on the Mars Pro is still fine for everyday use. So the absolute weakest part of the Mars is the audio. The speaker here is just average in terms of volume, and the sound is super tinny and very unclear, like they're static in the speakers. There's obviously no bass either. One more thing I want to mention, the steps in audio are really big, so it's either too soft or too loud, which can get annoying at times.
You're American when you go into the bathroom and you're American when you come out. But do you know what you are while you're in there? Don't. European. What did the ocean say to the shore? Nothing, it just waved.
I don't get it, these aren't even funny.
That's good.
Battery life here is not bad at all. Over 12 hours of use and almost 7 hours of screen on time, consisting of mostly YouTube, a lot of photos and general web browsing and games. Battery drop 80%, leaving 20% left, and again, not Snapdragon 625 levels of battery life, but still great. No one will have problems with battery life here. Light, medium, and heavy users can easily get 1 day of battery life. Vernee has once again shown that their software optimization is top notch. The Vernee Mars Pro is the fastest Helio P25 phone I've tested so far. One problem though that I did experience on other Vernee phones, it's really hard to scroll quote unquote medium speed. It's either super slow or super fast. Other than that really strange quirk, the phone is miles ahead of other companies like Maze and faster than the Elephone, Yumi, etc. In fact, the Vernee feels faster than the Mi 5X with the Snapdragon 625, which is quite an accomplishment. However, that's only in navigation and not opening apps. If you keep apps in the 6GB of RAM, yes, the apps open instantly, but opening an app normally is slow, about as slow as the Snapdragon 625, but is significantly slower than flagship level processors. And again, 6GB of RAM is useless, I never use more than 4. Moving on to gaming, the Mars can play any game I threw at it no problem. Need for Speed, Mortal Kombat, no problem at all. So I think side-mounted fingerprint sensors are a good idea, but Vernee needs to work on the accuracy. The sensor doesn't work with wet fingers and it only works about 80% of the time for me. Speed is average, not too slow but not too fast either. 4G speeds are good on the Mars, but I didn't get 4G that often, it dropped to 3G. Speaking of which, this phone doesn't support 3G in Canada, but I got 3G anyway, which is awesome. Wi-Fi reception is great, Bluetooth also. GPS works okay, but it jumps around sometimes. The camera here is also a big surprise. First, the camera app is not stock. Vernee developed their own software, and the biggest surprise is that you can capture raw photos. The downside is that it takes the phone about a second after capturing a photo to process it to be ready for the next one. The rear-facing camera is pretty impressive with one problem. I'll talk about the good stuff first. Detail is quite impressive. I would say it's either on par or slightly behind the old MediaTek Redmi Note 4. Color reproduction without HDR is also accurate and relatively saturated, but it can be drab at times. HDR is instant, there is no lag using HDR, and HDR improves shots of probably 95% of the time, which is very good, but again, HDR still washes out some photos. Low light shots are actually fine, again about on par with the old Note 4. Now for the problem, and that is autofocus. It seems to refuse to focus some of the time, resulting in blurry shots, forcing you to tap to focus properly. The RAW photos capture a ton of detail, but I don't see the point of RAW on phones since phone cameras aren't that great in the first place, so there's really no point in editing a RAW to improve a not that great photo. Seems like a gimmick to me. The selfie camera is fine, you can shoot RAW with a selfie camera as well, but I don't see why you would. Finally, the phone can shoot 4K video, but this video looks a lot more like upscale 1080p and has a lot of artifacting, but for 1080p it's honestly not that bad. Again, wow, Vernee has knocked it way out of the park with this one, and you know how I compare almost all phones to Xiaomi because they have the best price to performance? Well, the Vernee Mars Pro is my new benchmark for all things MediaTek. Obviously, I'll still compare it to Xiaomi's Note 4, but the Vernee Mars Pro is hands down the best mid-range MediaTek phone I've used ever. However, before you go rush out and buy this, I do have a link below for you to take a look at. I want you to take all this with a grain of salt because I've heard reports of issues with Vernee phones in general, and while I personally have never had problems with Vernee phones, do be careful. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Likes and subs would definitely help out this channel a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.